Well, hello, hello, hello to this beautiful sunny July. Just excited to see you all here gathering in the room. We had asked the question, are you hybrid? Are you remote? Are you somewhere in between? And getting lots of really cool conversation and a lot of hybrid and fully remote. And one of the reasons why I asked that question is because we're going to be talking about driving member engagement through Revitalized chapter events. And for many of us, the workplace changes are really bleeding in to our chapters and the impact of that. And knowing the degree to which folks are moving around, where they're coming from when they have to come to an event becomes an important piece of information. So welcome to the July webinar all about member engagement through events. Now, as many of you are fully aware, we are super excited to bring this to you. And I want to make sure you know the team behind this, Billhighway, and we have a Sarah Robertson on the phone, on the phone online today, who is celebrating, by the way, 10 years with Billhighway. So a big round of applause to someone who is really stuck in there, helping components really maximize everything that they can. So delighted that she's here still with us today. This is awesome. And of course, she has a whole team behind her because their job is to, with a teammanship spirit, to be able to help your CRP's teams be able to really assist chapters in being all that they can be through their technology solution. It really is about increasing ROI. Mariner, I'm here solo today, but you can see Peter in the picture. And we are super delighted as always to be part of the conversation today because we believe that feet on the street is an important part of the member value, but it's really how we do it. Now, before we dive into the conversation that I know you were all here for, and I am delighted to, I read an article that just got me thinking. So this is from the Harvard Business Review. And what I really, really love about this is it just spoke to me. And you know what else it spoke to me? It spoke to me as a person who works with volunteers. Because even though this article is written for how do you take care, help folks that are in the workplace on your work team, our team is fully remote for us, right? Our team of volunteers and all of our components around the country and around the globe are fully remote. And what we understand is that this has created some sense of isolation, and that while low engagement and productivity levels are maybe coming back a little bit as people have gotten used to that environment, the stress that we're under is still continuing to rise. And so this article gave us 4 things to think about. And I love these because I feel like we can apply these in working with our chapters, because so many chapters are struggling at this point to get their volunteers engaged. So what if we began talking to our volunteers and we opened up our volunteer meetings with, why are we here? What is the purpose of this group of volunteer leaders? And really tying it back to how we make a difference. And then really taking some time to say, what matters to you? I mean, what do you really believe in and care about? And then connect that, be able to connect that back to the work that they're doing. And what if we could really help them describe how they feel what they're doing is making a difference, so that they can see the importance of their own individual in the context of what is going on. And then finally, I love this idea, is to invite people to say what they get from each other. So anyway, just a thought for you as we're looking at how do we revitalize our chapter leader, component leader events. Maybe we can start with a little wellness time at the beginning of that. Okay, hopefully that is going to be, just a little resource that'll make a difference for you. So now into what we really were going to talk about. We know that events are a critical way that our chapters and components engage members, right? It's very important for us, though, to understand that being the source of putting on events is an incredibly stressful job, and it's continued to get even more stressful for our volunteer leaders. So what I want us to do today is to talk about 2 strategies, and then I have a bonus slide with some other ideas on it. 2 strategies, how we can help take some of that stress off of our volunteer leaders. Now, before I go, yes, and it is stressful for component staff as well. Thank you for reminding us that. And I bet you're going to get some thumbs up and likes on that. Before I go any further, I do want to say that the reason why we have chapters or components is to seal the deal on the member value proposition. It is really to serve members and where they are in a way that is relevant to those individual members. Now, why am I saying that? Because I believe in my heart of hearts that we continue to say to our chapters, you are event producers. And instead, we should say you are connection producers. And some of that connection is going to happen through events. And so it's really important, I believe, for us to say you're not an event planner, you are building connections, because that alone can help us revitalize the events that they're putting on. At the end of the day, events are going to be a critical part that chapters, a critical way that the chapters connect. So as we get started on this, I want to find out a little bit more about how your chapters are doing this so that when we talk about the 2 strategies, we can actually apply it to you. So I've got a couple of polls for you. Let's start with poll number 1. And I'd like you to do, and remember, these are these are longer polls. So please make sure that you open up the polling box so that you can make sure you can see all the answers. What types of events do your chapters hold? What types of events do your chapters hold? And this should be multiple choice. You should be able to put all of these in. And if you don't see something there, make sure you put that in other and go ahead and throw that into chat for us. So this is, we asked this question on our chapter benchmarking report. And so part of what we'll be able to do is to take a look to see how maybe some of this has changed since we brought that out in based on data in 2021. But essentially, I've given you options where they develop it, where they are not just, but they're, taking stuff that you developed and use it, whether they are doing regularly scheduled meetings, those kind of like just every, on some kind of a rhythm, whether they're doing something for certification or accreditation. Maybe they're doing those kinds of let's get out field trips, if you will. Maybe they do some kind of a service or charitable programs, trade shows, expos, and public outreach activities, lobby days. Yeah, I would put public outreach and lobby days. Those are good ones. We should have actually maybe listed that separately. So good on that. Thank you. Networking happy hours. So the networking happy hours, yeah, good point. As we looked at this list, we were trying to be as sporting events. Okay, Daniel, I just want to know because I've heard clay shooting is really big. Golf tournaments are really big. Love to get some examples in the chat of other types of sporting events. Or do you mean like one of my groups just did a whole day at the baseball game? So cornhole. Okay, I just went to the family reunion and I got into the finals, the semifinals of the cornhole. I do not play cornhole. I did not understand and still do not understand the scoring to this date. AAA baseball games, I love it. So journal clubs, I'd love, Andrea, for you to maybe share a little bit more in chat what a journal club is. I think that is awesome. Solve issues that they're reluctant, they're relevant to their area. Excellent. Indoor go-kart racing? Seriously, could I go to one of your chapter meetings? Whiskey tasting and a turkey shoot at the same time. I mean, that's kind of interesting. Badminton tournaments, axe throwing, and top golf. I should have mentioned top golf. Thank you, Amy. I'm glad you threw that in there. All right, let me go ahead and end this poll so you can see the results. Not surprising, I think, is that many of the chapter developed, many of them are doing their own things. What I do like seeing is HQ developed education. That's a great way for us to take some of the load off correct? Also to assure some consistency. I bet that Michelle Champion and maybe if we have Emily from CAI, I bet some of you actually went ahead and click that one. I know a number of folks do some really good stuff where they were able to collaborate with their with their national organization. NIGP is another one. Do me a favor in chat. If you do a headquarter developed education professional development program, can you please throw that information, just your contact information in chat, because people oftentimes want to find out how organizations are doing that. Let's go to poll number 2. Poll number 2 is going to be about how do you support events, the event process for your chapters. And now let me just talk through some of these answers so you know. We understand that some actually provide the event registration. Others handle just the data or maybe just do the fee collection, right? Others have special pricing that handles all of that. So maybe it's a third party that you've developed some pricing for. That would be item number 3. Do you cover event insurance or do you offer access to an insurance policy? And there's different. Cover event insurance means that you are actually covering it. I'm assuming relatively that is free. Actively promote chapter events on the central site. Maybe it's passive, you just list events. Maybe you actually are helping them with marketing and communications around it. Do you do any kind of event logistics support? And then of course, other, please put other. Love this. New laptop. Well, congratulations on the new laptop. And it's always good to make mistakes in a friendly environment. And we are here to be your friendly environment. So I totally love that. Yes. Okay. So Jeannie, that's one of the reasons why I wanted people to throw information in the chat, because I've heard of a lot of folks doing events in a box, and many times it's hit or miss, with more misses than hits. And so if there's someone that has some real success, please do that. But I think we can also learn from our misses so that we can get better. Yes, Michelle, I love the fact that you've got one that they can opt in. Wish we could get some more of that opting in. All right, let me go. I see the popcorn is completely stopped. Let me share just so you all can see that a large part of what you're doing is passive communications. Although there is some active communications, there are a couple that are handling some marketing events. So I'm asking these questions, and I'd love you to light up chat with whatever your story is or your example. If we have time at the end, I will go out and we'll ask some folks to talk a little bit more about event support. Why this question? Well, being an event planner is the third most stressful job. And not only that, they've had no skills, no training. The degree to which we can be a partner in supporting that event is one of the best ways we can help them reimagine and put together events that are going to keep them energized through the process. So the simplest thing is, can we just help them with communications once they put something together? The more complex thing is, can we offer them an event package? Either way, the point is, if we want them to do events, we have to start supporting them. Oh my gosh, Liz going live with Billhighway next month. That is super exciting. We're going to have you come back on again and be able to share about that with you. I love it. Oh, I love that, Julia. We do need to talk a little bit more about the fact that you offer workshops at conferences. Some great ideas. Folks, this webinar content itself is not going to have all of the answers, but you've got a lot of people in here. Third and final for the moment here, event requirements. We're trying to find out, do you require, meaning they have to do it? Do you have recommendations? Do you have nothing? Are you just not really kind of clear or from sure? And remember, not knowing is okay. So go ahead and answer that. So I love this. So I do so the reason why we asked that one question about, do you put it on even though it's passive, do you put it on your calendar? And I like, as Emily points out, they do that And it's beautiful because it gives a broader picture of where members can tap in. And I do know that NIGP has just launched a really cool program where they have a website, and you can buy into the Club Express website, I think it was. In any case, part of what they do is they set it up so that every chapter website shows up the chapter events, and right next to it all the national events. The point is, we want to meet members where they are, and that means being able to have at least a single source where they can go to is going to help all of us. Beautiful. All right, let me end the poll because the popcorn has stopped. So I love the fact that this is all over the board. I love the fact that not quite 50% yes, almost 30% recommended only. That means the majority of you, though, are doing some kind of a conversation about having events. I'm going to suggest that one of the things that does is that puts all of the focus on events. So as you're looking at what your requirements are, making sure that you've got some balance with some of the other requirements as well. We can go deeper into that, but I'm going to stop the sharing for right now so we can get on to some of the ideas that we have. Strategy number 1 to share is get acquainted with your target audience. The audience has shifted incredibly, both expectations and preferences. And if our chapter leaders are not being clearly oriented to those shifts, whether they're doing it on their own or with your assist, it's going to make them difficult to actually reimagine or revive their event structures. So what are some of the things that has really shifted? One of the things that has shifted, and we still see this, is there still is a preference for virtual. And the latest survey that I've shown to a couple of associations this past year shows that nearly 50% say they're going to be largely virtual. Now, there's a nice cohort that say, oh, they're going to do whatever's going to work, right? And then there's a very small cohort who are saying, I want to be in person only. The point is that virtual is here to stay. And so part of what we have to understand is to get those people out of virtual, if that is is expected option and preferred, how do we do that in a way? What do we do about our events that pulls them out? The other thing is that they are expecting when they get in the room with you an experience. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. It cannot be the grape jelly with regular peanut butter on white bread anymore. That is not going to pull people out. We've got to do something to dazzle up that PB&J. And the best way to do that is to start with the member. The best way to do that is to ask your audience. It's to really understand who they are and how they have changed. The first thing I'm going to suggest that you do is you encourage them, reward them, assist them, okay, and being able to seek input from members. And as I said to someone, we were talking, I just came back from Chicago, the lovely sunny city of Chicago, where I spent one day with the food technologist section leaders, amazing group of people, and then a day with the dental folks, an amazing day there talking with all of their membership folks and from their states and locals. And in both cases, we really talked about the fact that we spend too much time asking people who come to events what else they want. We need to go out and talk to never attendees and to those that are just really on the sideline of how involved that they are. And we have to also ask every time we have a conversation is, what bucket do they fit in? Because it's really imperative for us at this point for us to begin to recognize that generational difference is a big deal. It's not so much generational differences. I'm going to use that as a sort of a word, but it's really about career. So it's really, we're going to need to get our volunteer leaders to do that. So yes, Joshua, how do you do that? So what I'm going to suggest is that the best way for them to do that is to start with their data points, take a look, get a profile of the folks that don't attend and a profile of the folks that do attend. Take a look at that. What is similar? What is different? You're going to see some differences, right? And note those differences. And in general, the folks that are coming to event are these kinds of characteristics. The people who are not coming to events are these kind of characteristics. You're going to find it's going to draw maybe on size of the member company. It's going to draw on where they are in a career stage. It's going to draw on where they are in terms of the geographic the pockets, the geographic pockets. It very much could be on the type. So you might find that folks that are in a governmental role, for example, or in an academic role, don't come as often as, say, someone in a corporate role. So look at those things. So first, take a look at your data. You've got registration lists, who's coming, who's not coming. Then pick a group of individuals, get 1 or 2 or 3 of the volunteer leaders, or if there is a staff available for that chapter, just come up with a really quick little script and do some outreach. Do a couple of quick phone calls. Don't go deep. Don't try to sell them on anything. Just, hey, you're a member. Thank you for being a member. Listen, we're putting together our programs and services. Have not seen you on a registration list in the last year. Can I ask you a couple of quick questions? Do you get professional education outside of your organization? That's a no-brainer, right? Do you have any other, what other associations or what are your other sources, for your education and your activity? Do you do any other kind of networking or social activities with peers or folks from the community? You're not asking them why they don't come. You're asking them what they do come to, and and are they getting that source from someone else, right? Then you might say, what's a favorite event that you've been to in the last year? And just have a really good conversations. And the last question I always ask is, well, what's your pain point in the next 6 months? Just so I understand what issue could possibly bring folks in. Here are some additional questions that I think are real keeper questions. And I'm going to ask you, suggest that you begin to feed these to your members. What you also might want to do, I don't like surveys for this particular thing. If I'm non-attending, then the likelihood is I'm not going to do a survey. However, doing a quick 1-question poll to members, just go out to all members and say something like, do you have a success story in your job to share? Yes or no? Please tell us a little bit more about it. Excellent. Can we call you about it? So just doing a 1-question poll. Do not do the poll that says, which of the following topics are you interested in that we should do next year? Because what I'm interested in that moment of time may not translate, okay? So start with the member, learn about them, talk to the folks that aren't coming, look at your data to determine that, and begin to ask the questions of where do they get this information? How do they get this information? Rather than why don't you come? And if you ask somebody, and it's not a bad question per se, but which of the following drive you to attend to events, or which of the following keep you from attending events? You give them excuses to click. And so I'd rather that you do something that is talking about what do they need so that you can keep them involved and engaged. Now, the other thing to do is, because people are going to come and they're going to give you cool information or ideas, or you're going to look at the data and you're going to really understand a little bit more about this individual, go ahead and do a journey map for your events or activities. This is going to allow you then to build some more experience and more experience elements into this. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, I want you to look at the event from the eyes of the attendees. So one way to do this was, if you have and I would do this even for a small event. Let's say you have a small event. I would suggest that you have someone ask your chapter volunteers, have someone there who at the end of the day can actually talk to somebody as they're walking out and say, hey, I just got 3 questions about this event. Can you tell me A, B, and C? That's how you can begin to make sure you get them in there. Or have a really cool meetup with 2 or 3 or 4 attendees and say, talk to me about how did you feel and you think during the last event that you attended. So treat them for a cup of coffee, say, hey, we're just trying to get an understanding of the experience itself. And then take all of these elements and actually map out what are the steps that a attendee has to go through to be part of your event. So this is a great way for you to find out, is there a part of the process that is closing folks down? Is there a registration system that is not truly mobile friendly, right? Do you have a situation where you don't have a follow-up reminder that the event is coming up because people's lives are busy and their schedules change? Do you have an opportunity on your event thing to actually say, click, add to my calendar? What are the steps that are keeping your members from really being engaged in the process at any particular time? And third, I want you to ask, I want you to ask what made this a rewarding experience. And I want you to walk through and think about that. Part of this is saying, how did this experience provide something that isn't available somewhere else, right? So if I were to wrap this up and into kind of like a nice tight bow, the idea is you want to actually get deep into the member experience throughout the entire event, so you can look for opportunities to ramp it up, to make it easier, right? And ways to maybe retool the marketing. So I know this could be a little, might feel like it's a big task. What you might do at a chapter leader meeting is have folks come together, sit at the table, and give them the journey at the beginning. Say, look, these are the typical steps that an attendee would come to a chapter meeting. And these are the attributes. Go ahead and rate yourself. Now have a conversation at the table. You might remember that in 2019 at our CEX, at the in-person, we did a journey mapping session right there in person. And you all worked through a scenario where you looked at how someone made the decision to connect with the chapter and the national organization. And we showed where there were pain points. This would be an excellent way for you to support your chapter leaders in decoding what is tripping them up when they're putting together events, decoding what parts of their process is not working for them. So I'm going to suggest that you go ahead, come up with a little template. You can do this, do the training, and then maybe even have some sort of an incentive that says, find one thing you can change it and report it back, and we have some swag or something for you, right? So build in some incentives for this, but a great training opportunity. You could do it virtual, you could do it in person. It's just really fun when you're sitting at a table with a bunch of other people and you've got a big sheet of paper out there to do this. Priceless. This is what event planners do when they're putting on big events, and they want to make sure that the event succeeds. So strategy 1, as you know, is all about getting to know the member. It's really understanding what's changed. It's understanding how behaviors have changed. And it is also about spending the time to look at the event through the attendee's eyes. Strategy number 2, let's just call this the 4 C's. All right. But I'm going to say that there's another part of it. This whole strategy is about thinking about events, thinking of working with members, not for members. Let me repeat that. It's about working with members to design, to create, to pull off not for members. It seems maybe like a subtle, but it is not subtle at all. On the one, we are an event machine. We put on monthly event every month on the 15th of the month. It's Turkey Tuesday. And we get together and we have someone stand up and talk for blah, 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 blah. And then we have a meal. Or we put on 3 big events. We have a conference, we have an awards program, and we have a golf outing. Yay. It's about we, the chapter, do this, versus working with the members to say, what would you like to have? We're going to build this program. How can I engage you in there? Really, really critical. One of the things that we have heard in particular from our generations that are now coming in to our workplaces is that they're there for connections. And because they're there for connections, they want to be they want to be involved in how that session is being designed and connected with, right? So what does the strategy look like in terms of making it happen? Well, on the co-creation side, let's stay with that because those were the example I was giving. This is not going to be about some program group just trying to decide what we should do and get and put it out there. Instead, I want you to help your chapter leaders go to members. Simple questions. Got any ideas for a location? Maybe you can find somebody who will do open up their business for you. What kind of topics? What kind of speakers? Going out and crowdsourcing, if you will, their ideas, right? Set up a focus group to build events. So what we did a couple of years ago with the PRSA Maryland chapter was we pulled together a group of individuals. They were half of them folks that did not come to the annual conference and half that did. And what I did was we put out pizza party in a central location, and we said, hey, we're just thinking through what would be a really cool opportunity, learning opportunity here in Baltimore in place of our annual conference. I said, come, just RSVP and come. So I had about 10 people in the room, and we just had a wide ranging conversation in which we talked about why would you come? What would you be interested in? What's a conference you really enjoyed before? What did you like about the one you attended? Why did you never? Just really awesome conversation. And then we said, would you be interested in a follow-up conversation, right? So of the 10, I had about 3 or 4 who said they wanted to do something more. I wound up getting one of them actually on the planning team. The point being is, when we promoted, we said a group of your members met together, and these are some of their highlights, their insights. All right, add polls to pre-event communications. Be flexible enough to go ahead and say, I can do something a little bit differently if I need to. Have some fun with this, okay? And then ask members to share a story. So in other words, instead of making everything the sage on the stage, can you engage folks to be part of developing the content? Collaboration. This is where I say to y'all, putting on events is a tough business. So why don't we encourage our chapters to share the work and the success? So in other words, don't reward chapters for all the individual events. Begin to really say, hey, collaboration is your secret weapon, and we're going to begin to reward you, assist you in some way to be able to collaborate. I know that when we manage the Risk Management Association, one of our big events was with the local bar, the local CPA Association, and our chapter and the local marketing chapter, marketing association chapters, and we pulled together a young professionals gathering. I don't think we would have had as much success, but so lawyers, CPAs, folks that are doing some marketing, and bankers are all looking to meet each other for referrals, right? There's lots of cool things to do. And you know what? I just want to mention to you that in terms of sharing the work, I will say to you that we took a somewhat of a similar approach with CEX 2.0. If you recall, we looked at how can we change this really differently, and we were able to collaborate with Matchbox Media to support part of the program and allow them to be able to, be a happy host, right? It helps you when you begin to work with other people to bring them in so that you're not the only one carrying the weight, right? So collaborate. One of the cool things that I heard, I just learned from my travels, is one of the headquarters has a webinar, and what they did was they recommended that local groups had their own in-person gathering. That worked really well for that organization. So the content comes from one location, but the networking and the peer-to-peer learning goes from there. Oh, and I'm sorry, and here's the other, the CEX model, because the other more important thing about the CEX 2.0 model was actually the fact that we decided to leverage an opportunity to tap virtual, in-person, and wrap up. So help them look at how they take an event and think about it differently. But more importantly, don't think about it alone. Connections, number 3. I started at the beginning by saying that we shouldn't be event planners, we're connection planners, right? Our whole goal as chapter leaders is to help people meet each other. And we can do this in some small and medium ways. And what I want to talk to you about first is that you got to build it in an event, right? You have to create an opportunity for an event is simply bringing people together around a shared attribute or interest. You have to provide actual sessions where you're hands-on and working with each other. They're not spending the time just listening to individuals. And really, frankly, you have to make sure that you're building in these sessions where they get a chance to stand up and to boast, but they also get a chance to sit around and work through a project, work through a solution, help them really find answers as opposed to you always being the one to give those answers. Finally, a huge part of how we're going to engage folks that are more and more interested in what is the impact is in community service projects. I bet many of you are doing this kind of networking. Throw into chat. What examples have you heard from your chapters for some great connection building activities or events? Connection building activities or events. And who remembers back in, was it 2018, I think, we did the hackathon at ASAE annual. That was fun. Knotted blankets for pets or kids. I love this. Keep these in because these are ideas that you can then hand back out to other chapters. The idea here in all of these cases is thinking of the chapter as the matchmaker, the matchmaker. And so the last part I want to build into this is you also want to build in formal networking. And by building in formal networking, I'm talking about the opportunity for you to make sure that the design of the meeting puts folks together. One of the icebreakers I've been doing increasingly, and I just did it with the wonderful folks at IFT, was we did a find 10 things in common at the table. And to find the 10 things in common, you define 10 things in common that had nothing to do with why they were in that room, right? It was wonderful because people began to see each other through a different light, which is really, really important. Okay, Leanne has asked a really good question, and I hope some folks can jump in on this. Do anyone have a policy for chapters doing community projects? And Leanne says that we are a 501c3 and we've steered away from these types of projects. I'm not entirely sure why you've steered away from them. They are a huge connection builder, but please, folks, go ahead. And if anybody has an example of a policy or just even share why you don't have a policy. I think any and all of those would be really valuable. And while we do that, I'm going to move on to the second part of building the connections, because you have to build networking in all of these ways. I loved wanting to mention to you, I just mentioned to you the one meaningful icebreaker, but I do want to mention to you the walk and talks, because we have used that here with Mariner with a number of our programs, and what a difference it makes. It can be, so what essentially this is, you've just had a conversation and you pair people up and you have them walk. They can sit in another place if they want to, but it's a walk and talk because they're talking about what they just heard and how they would use it and what questions they have about it in a way that's a smaller conversation. Now, the walk and talks work a couple different ways. Last year, one of the ways that I did it was we had a break. So we met in the morning. There was an all-day chapter leader training. We met in the morning. We broke for lunch. It was an awards lunch with many other groups, and then we came back. So the walk and talk that we did was, on their way, they had to walk in pairs to the lunch, and it was a bit of a distance. It was going to be about a 6 minute, maybe 5-6 minutes, maybe, and to talk. When we came back, we had them share on stickies part of that conversation. So the walk and the talk is simply allowing people to begin to take content that they have and apply it, make connections, right? The intentional breaks, let me just mention, because we ran out of time the other day and we still did the break, and said to people, I said, there's more slides in the slide deck, but everybody needs a break. Now, the other thing is, I want to make sure that you encourage your chapters to really build in that networking pre and post, because we meet a lot of people and then we go back home to the office. One of the things that I thought was a really cool thing that I learned from a chapter was they do a post-event catch-up in which everybody comes back to a virtual meetup, but they all go into breakout rooms. So just an opportunity to go ahead and do that. So connections, ever so important. And the fourth C is content. We're ending with the fourth C rather than starting with it, so that I can emphasize to you that content is everywhere. Members don't need the chapter specifically for content that they can find somewhere else, right? Some members just don't dedicate the time to professional development, and they do rely on them, but they're still looking for content that is relevant and not readily accessible. So it means that we have to help them do a better job with the content. And largely, it may not be that the content is so different as the way it is delivered. It may still have the same good 5 points I get on that webinar for free, but I'm offering it in a peer-to-peer learning in a way, so I get it differently. So let's teach the chapters about the principles of adult learning. One of the things that I did this particular week, and I did a couple times back again, is we did what we called pauses in the day. So I would do something and then I would pause and I would explain the adult learning principle behind it, so that the individuals in the room were learning not only the content we wanted them to learn, but also some of the learning principles, so that they could apply the way we were sharing into developing their own programs. I will often do, as people know that have brought me in to support, I will often do polls, and I will often do small group work, and I will often use flip notes and stickies, and I will often do icebreakers, and I will pause and say to folks, hey, by the way, this connects with adult learning, adult learning principle X. Right. You might want to help speakers shape the best sessions by actually training them to be better facilitators, right? And I also want you to suggest that you, again, incentivize volunteers and these folks that are planning these meetings to try something different. Teach them how to do a talk show style. Teach them how to do a fishbowl. Teach them how to do an Ask Me Anything. Teach them how to do a really cool networking in your training sessions, and then they will be able to experiment with those formats. we put people in the room and we say, hey, create a new event, and they all get together and they create what? A new version of the same old event. Instead, teach them a format and then ask them to create that, right? Also, very important that we are being very clear on making recommendations for how you bring diversity in. So I didn't see any response to Leanne. Is that because no one has a policy for doing chapter projects? Please put in chat, if you would, if you have no policy, why you don't have a policy, and if you do have a policy, how we can maybe get a hold of that. All right. Leveraging the 4 C's overall. Let me just do a quick recap. I'm taking my time here. We've got some good, we still have some time. So we're on a good path here, but let me just go through and underscore the elements here. Co-creation is getting members involved in creating the event. So let me ask in chat, is there anybody that has a great example of getting members involved in creating the event? Oh, Emily, that's a great suggestion. Pamela, have a great day. I love that. It's like maybe teaching your folks what are the best practices. I hate that word best, don't you? Effective practices on choosing what events to do and then choosing the role that's appropriate to the event. So that sounds like a great thing that we could have a small work group on here pulled together. Excellent, excellent. Anyway, anyone have an example of getting members involved in creating an event? Love to see any examples of that from chat. Getting members involved. We're getting some additional answers in there on the current one. I like that. So Michelle's got an example. She just talks about that our members divide into groups to plan the programmatic element. That's cool. Chris says we have put together a chapter meeting catalog. It's been really effective. Is that something you can share a link to, Chris? That would be awesome. Nice. So I'm going to suggest that if we want folks to really begin to co-create, we've got to give them examples, very clear examples. Collaboration. We've talked about this. We've got a number of different webinars in which we talk about collaboration. If anybody has a recent collaboration, co-collaboration between 2 chapters, between one of your chapters and a sister organization, between national chapters, throw that into chat too. Let's get some good examples that we can share. Lots of times the collaboration is a matter of helping two chapters to create an MOU on putting together a program. So for example, if someone has if a chapter in Maryland has a great conference and the DC and Northern Virginia chapters say, well, we don't want to have to put our own on, that's silly. How do the 3 of us come together? With PRSA Maryland, we did a joint DC Maryland program a couple of times. And there were 3 chapters in the area, and we all came together, we assigned the roles, and we had a revenue sharing. Now we put that together. So collaboration sometimes is about you providing the tools. Connection is about you showing folks how to make those connections. Oh, Margaret, I knew I had seen something. I think you shared that before, that you have interdivisional grants that we offer. This is incentivize collaboration between our 54 divisions. I love that idea, and I think we should take it. Margaret, if there's anything you can share about that, maybe maybe a link or the checklist or whatever about that. Could you do that with us? Because that would be awesome. That is a super idea. And I did see, Chris, thank you very much for offering to email that to us. I would love to be able to see that and be able to share that. As a matter of fact, maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, I'll let Sarah weigh in, but since several people would love to see it, maybe if you sent it to me and I got it to Sarah, we could include it in one of our resources lists. So excellent. Find the venue and food and have a speaker and what. Oh, Karina, that is a cool thing. Did you find a lot of small chapters? So did you limit it to small chapters? Just to put that in chat, did you limit to small chapters, or did you was it open to everybody? Karina's writing, and it's she's writing that the previous association, she had a program where the chapter only had to find the venue and the food, and HQ would send the speakers. All right. I'm loving the chat. So obviously I allow myself to get to take over look over there so we know what's going on here. The final one is content. Give members effective content and make it an enjoyable experience. All right. I am so glad. I'm so glad to be able to have the time. I have a bonus slide here. Even Sarah hasn't seen the bonus slide. But I have had an opportunity over this past year and a half. I go to a lot of associations, working with a lot of component leaders, and I have stolen ideas that I have seen. And so my bonus slide for you all that are here is ideas to expand events. And I want to share with you just a couple of thoughts about how you can help chapters think a little bit differently. All right. By the way, even though I snuck this slide in, it will be in the final slide deck. Okay. First of all, is talk to them about going short. Talk to them about the 30-minute Monday, the 30-minute briefing, the 45-minute lunch and learns. Let's go ahead, particularly when we're talking about virtual, that we start thinking in terms of less than an hour. Make this something that is digestible. It's a take 5 kind of approach. It's not going to take a lot of bit of time, but we're going to build connections. A great way for you to have these is to have them about a month before an in-person event, because it will drive folks to be thinking about that in-person event. Think about the meetup. Now, we've talked about this before, but I have picked up some really cool ideas. I have to tell you that I kind of think of Michelle at Camped, because a couple of her chapters have done some really good things along this line. They have, anyway, they have these groups that get together on focused or a smaller time frame, but it could be a book club, it could be a meditation group, it could be a writing workshop. Yes, there isn't a professional association that had a writing workshop. They just said, if you bring something that you're working on that is a little tough, come on in. We're going to sit around this table. We're going to be writing, but we're going to help each other with brain drains. Several of Michelle's California chapters have these support groups, which are short-term in focus, which are really doing a great job. And then, of course, there's the short-term learning cohorts. Have explorer groups. This is where you can check out and off the local, check out and check little local sites. Maybe it's a walking tour. There was a chapter that told me about the fact that they had somebody who was a docent at one of the DC-based museums, and knew other docents, and they put together these different, just a quick museum tour. I went to different museums, and they had a special tour just for them because they knew an inside docent. Anyways, it really works well. Leading with the content. What I'm going to suggest here is that folks are more likely to come if they see that you are able to provide them with stuff that they can't get. The thing that I love, and I've been bragging about it, I actually found it through a vendor. And there's on Tuesdays, you get a text message. We all signed into a text message that has a question of the week. It's usually A, B, C, D, or yes, no, or whatever. Then you respond and you say, here's, if you want to respond more, then I get, before I get the next poll, I get here's what the results were, and it's not big, and it's okay. Here's what the results are, and here are a list of resources to learn more, right? Expert dates and expert clinics and brain dates. This is a perfect event add-on. But basically you're saying, we're going to be here, but we're going to play matchmaker, right? We're going to play matchmaker and bring two people together. And finally, the curated playlist. I have to admit, I first saw this, one of AIA's chapters had a very successful tour. It'd be a one-day tour where you would go and see all the new builds. And what they did was, in COVID, was they put it on, instead of doing it, they couldn't do it in person, so they did it virtual, and you took a tour of your place, and then they curated the list to be able to see all of these places. Great idea. Variation is, the sort of the list of resources. All right, folks, it's 12:58. That's my bonus content and opportunity to expand events. Love to have your ideas sitting through chat. But I got one more question for you, because we're really interested to know, and let me put this up here. We're really interested to know, are you coming to ASAE annual? Is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it I have no idea? A yes, a no, or I have no idea. So we're asking this because now I will be on a month-long sojourn. I'm taking the month off so that I can go and come up with brilliant ideas to dazzle you. But there is going to be some cool stuff going. And so what I want to do is find out. And I see that we have got, most of you are not able to come. So maybe we should have a meetup afterwards for the folks that are able to come, right? So that we can go ahead and do that. All right. So real quickly, if you are going, you've got opportunities to connect with them, and you are invited to the big A2 party, where you have an opportunity on Sunday the 6th from 5:30 to 8 to meet up and have some great folks. We are just right now at the top of the hour, super excited. In September, we'll be together. In October, but drum roll please, November 8th, we've got Beth Z talking about chapter tech, especially talking about Chat GPT. We'll see you on all of these dates and more. Have a great and wonderful day. Throw into chat any last minute questions. We'll be talking to you soon. Go on, Daniel. Enjoy it. Thank you. From Billhighway and Mariner.